revealed how two brothers overcame poverty to build ADIDAS PUMA, a touching family tragedy. In a small German town, desperation hung thick in the air, and two brothers, Adolf and Rudolf, were all too familiar with its suffocating grip. With their father buried under piles of debt, they spent long, sun-soaked days helping him in his cobbler shop. Barefoot and dusty, they hustled from sunrise to sunset. The faint smell of leather mixed with sweat was all they knew. Often, they carved dreams in the dirt with sticks, imagining one day they would craft shoes that could take athletes to new heights, shoes that would echo through the stadiums of America as they worked side by side. Laughter often erupted between them, a sanctuary from the harshness of reality. They would cheer on their friends in town soccer matches, hearts racing with each goal. They shared hopes of becoming not just successful but legends. The warmth of brotherly love enveloped them, even as their father's struggles shadowed their innocence. They wanted a way out, a chance to turn the tide in a world that seemed determined to keep them down. But dreams aren't always straightforward, and as they grew, so did their ambitions. Adolf, the older brother, saw clear paths. He envisioned a brand that spoke of excellence and reliability, ADIDAS. Meanwhile, Rudolf's heart beat for something more daring, different, a bold rebellion against the norm that would come to life under the name Puma. Tension simmered beneath their camaraderie. Reports of local fame began swirling around town as word spread of their growing shoe designs crafted from cobbler scraps. People noticed. Their unique creations soon caught the eyes of athletes and local teams. Each shoe sparked excitement, echoing the brotherly bond that had once defined their teamwork. But with success came the sneaky whispers of envy. They began comparing themselves, rivalry creeping in where harmony once thrived. Then, there was Mr. Kiefer, a weathered war veteran who lived next door. He watched the brothers from his porch, observing how dreams transformed into competition. He saw when laughter faded and tension thickened the air. Memories of simpler times tried to break through the frost that had settled in their hearts. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As weeks turned into months, the brothers found themselves entrenched in a bitter contest, hearts heavy with unspoken words. The weight of unshared dreams threatened to pull them apart. Just when it seemed pride would sever their bond, Mr. Kiefer finally took the plunge. He stepped forward one evening, his presence filling the room with a different kind of musk, one of history, sacrifice, and unmet dreams. His voice trembled, not with anger, but the weight of experience. You boys remind me of myself, brothers against the world, but you've lost what you had. The silence that followed was deafening. Their shared laughter echoed faintly, a reminder of better times, even as unresolved emotions hung in the air. Could they rebuild what had been so easily fractured? As they stood at the crossroads of rivalry versus reunion, a singular question loomed over them. Would pride keep them apart, or could they heal their wounds and rediscover the beloved dream they shared? Only time would reveal if the bonds of family could endure this greatest test of all. The air hung thick with anticipation, teetering between silence and the chaos of unspoken words, as the brothers absorbed Mr. Kiefer's heartfelt plea. The intensity of the moment pierced through their defenses, and for the first time, they truly felt the weight of what was at stake. Adolf glanced at Rudolf, his eyes searching for a hint of understanding. "Think about it," he whispered, the conviction shaking his voice. "We came together for a reason, didn't we? We had the same dreams. Can't we at least try to find a way back to that?" Rudolf crossed his arms, brows furrowing in contemplation. The familiar warmth of brotherhood flickered within him, fighting stubbornly against the icy grip of rivalry. But what if we can't? What if everything we built is destined to be at odds? The fear in his tone was palpable. Mr. Kiefer, standing nearby, shifted slightly. He had witnessed both the camaraderie and the growing feud, and saw the potential for both tragedy and triumph. "Let me tell you a story," he said, grounding his words with the wisdom drawn from a lifetime filled with both combat and camaraderie. "I once had a brother. We fought harder than anyone else I knew, but together we shaped our worlds. It was never about being the best. It was about being there for each other." The brothers looked at one another, eyes glistening with memories of what they used to share. Training together in their father's shop, laughing late into the night, dreaming big. They had dreamed of this moment, but here they were, standing on opposite sides, feeling the gulf widen with every passing second. Tension hung in the air like a heavy shroud. Yet Mr. Kiefer's words began stitching the gap, pulling Adolf and Rudolf back from the brink. They exchanged glances filled with the unspoken understanding that neither of them wanted the fight to continue. "Maybe," Rudolf proposed cautiously, "we shouldn't see it as either Adidas or Puma. What if we combined our visions? We're stronger together, right?" Adolf felt something within him shift. It was as if the walls they had built around their hearts were beginning to crack. A union between the two brands, he mused, surprised at the possibility resonating with a muted thrill. "But how?" Rudolf asked, still marred by habit and doubt. "What if one of us shines brighter than the other, and the envy returns?" "It will take trust," Mr. Kiefer interjected softly, a knowing smile spreading across his face. "And courage. You need to be open to the possibility of sharing." Adolf nodded, feeling the pulse of hope. "We'd be pioneers, blending our distinct paths into one extraordinary journey." The air around them trembled with the emotion of unfulfilled dreams yearning for realization. It felt as if the weight of the past was lessening, giving way to a new dawn. The brothers stood shoulder to shoulder, almost feeling the electricity of shared purpose again. But before they could fully embrace the idea, doubt crept back in. "What if it doesn't work? What if I can't handle sharing the spotlight?" Rudolf felt the familiar pang in his heart, battling against the budding hope. Adolf took a deep breath, his resolve solidifying. "Then we'll figure it out together. But we can't let fear choose for us anymore. We owe it to ourselves, and to each other." As those words echoed into the evening air, the brothers knew that stepping into this venture would require courage beyond measure. Could they take the leap? Would they discover a way to merge their passions into something greater than either could have accomplished alone? With hearts pounding and spirits rekindling, they moved toward a defining moment. This was the crossroads where their journey would change forever. But as dusk settled over their small town, a knot of uncertainty remained. Could brotherhood truly rise from the ashes of rivalry? As the sun dipped below the horizon, their silent pact hung in the air, fraught with promise. A new chapter awaited, one that would push them toward destinies they never imagined. Would they soar together, or would the winds of envy tear them apart? Once more, the night wore on, cloaking the brothers in shadows and uncertainty. They stood close, the silence stretching between them, but neither was quite ready to let the moment slip away. The remnants of doubt mingled with the thrill of possibility. Adolf broke the stillness. "You remember those summer nights on the dock? The stars felt so close, like we could reach out and grab them." His voice was soft, laced with nostalgia. Rudolf nodded, his shoulders relaxing slightly. "I do. We believed we could conquer the world. Maybe we still can," Adolf suggested, his heart pounding with a new kind of energy. "But we need to lay a foundation first. A partnership that marries our strengths." Rudolf turned towards him, curiosity flickering in his eyes. "What are you suggesting? What if we created a line? Something that reflected both our visions? A collection that embodies the spirit of both brands, Adidas and Puma, working in harmony." The idea hung in the air, glittering like those stars they once dreamed beneath. Rudolf felt the excitement bubbling up, igniting his imagination. A collaboration that's bold. "Yeah, and it can't just be a product. We need a story, something real. We grew up together. We value the same things," Adolf continued, passion infusing his words. "Let us showcase that to the world." Rudolf hesitated, worry creeping back in. "But what if it fails? More than our brands are on the line here," Adolf. It's our history, our family name. Or Adolf interjected, what if it works? What if we redefine not just our brands, but what it means to be brothers? For a moment, the tension between them dissolved, replaced by a fragile but vibrant hope. They could feel the electricity of shared dreams sparking back to life. Mr. Kiefer, still a silent observer, nodded approvingly. That's the spirit. It's about connection between brothers, between ideas. People are drawn to authenticity. As the heaviness of doubt loosened its grip, Rudolf began to smile. Okay, let us map this out. What would our first release look like? Something that pays homage to our roots. Adolf said, enthusiasm coursing through him. Maybe a line inspired by the styles we wore growing up? They began brainstorming, their voices rising with excitement. Ideas flowed, each more daring than the last bold designs that intertwined their histories, shoes that carried both their signatures. But just as inspiration surged, a flicker of insecurity dimmed the light. Rudolph's brow furrowed again. What if we release the designs and the old rivalry flares up? What if it doesn't sit well with anyone? Adolph's expression turned serious. Then we confront it. This is more than about pride or reputation. It's about family. I refuse to let fear dictate our actions. Rudolf felt something shift inside him, a flicker of courage igniting. You're right. This needs to be more than historic names on a label, it needs heart. They exchanged a look filled with understanding, the kind they hadn't experienced in years. Both brothers felt the melding of their energies, a unity that whispered of resilience. As they continued to talk and sketch, the midnight oil burned bright. Each idea felt like a piece of the puzzle falling into place, and with every word, they rebuilt their bond. But outside, clouds gathered ominously. A storm was brewing, both metaphorically and literally, and soon their resolve would be tested in ways they couldn't possibly fathom. With excitement bubbling through them, they rushed through plans and sketches, oblivious to the gathering darkness. Could this newfound alliance withstand the storm? Was their rekindled bond resilient enough to thrive under pressure? The answers awaited them just ahead, and the winds of destiny were beginning to howl. As the clock ticked toward dawn, the brothers' heads hovered over the sketches sprawled across the table, the ideas flowing like the calm before a storm. Each line and color held promise, a testament to their renewed connection. But Rudolf's mind was still clouded with doubts, even as the heart of creativity thudded excitedly in his chest. Tell me, Rudolf said, his voice barely above a whisper, how do we make sure this feels genuine? How do we convince people we're not just trying to cash in on some nostalgic dream? Adolf leaned back, thoughtfully tapping his fingers on the table. We use our stories. Each of us has a unique tale, where we started, what drove us apart, and now what's bringing us back together. That's what people connect with. He paused, catching Rudolf's gaze. It's about honesty. Rudolf felt a spark of hope igniting again, but it flickered too quickly under the weight of responsibility. The last thing I want is for us to make this worse. I couldn't bear the thought of dragging our names through the mud. What if the backlash is worse than the push we hope for? Adolf smiled slowly, igniting a warmth that spread through the room. Then we face it together. I'm not going to let the fear of failure keep us from taking this leap. We have the chance to change things, not only for the brands but for us. That leap, Rudolf murmured, envisioning the fallout. Feels like jumping into the unknown. It's risky. Life is risky, Adolf replied, determination thick in his voice. But what if we landed on something incredible? Rudolf felt an undeniable urge to believe. The essence of their childhood, the brotherly bond they had fought to protect, flickered in the back of his mind like an old movie reel. Okay, he finally breathed. Let us make sure everything we create speaks to where we come from. Let us have the past guide us rather than haunt us. As they resumed their brainstorming, light began to spill into the room, illuminating their sketches, shoes adorned with patterns reminiscent of their first pair, colors that echoed the humble streets of their childhood. They shared ideas with enthusiasm, their voices blending in an almost harmonious rhythm, a symphony crafted through years of separation finally rewoven. But as dawn broke, The ominous clouds that had gathered throughout the night did not relent. Outside, thunder rumbled, and rain started to fall in sheets. With each drop, anxiety mixed with excitement, echoing the highs and lows of their lives. "Do you hear that?" Rudolf asked, pausing as he glanced outside. "It's just a storm," Adolf replied, but there was an edge of uncertainty in his tone. "No, I mean it sounds like more than that," Rudolf said, suddenly uneasy. "It's not just rain." The winds howled more fiercely, rattling the windows. Suddenly, Mr. Kiefer's voice sliced through the rising tension. "Boys, we may have a bigger problem than we thought." A chill spread through the room as the brothers exchanged looks of confusion. Whatever was happening outside could mean trouble for their ambitious plans. They rushed to the window, hearts pounding, wondering what storm was truly approaching. Little did they know, their challenges were only beginning. What kind of struggles would reveal themselves as the storm loomed closer? Would the bond they had just started to rebuild withstand this next test? The wind howled outside like an angry beast, shaking the very bones of the old house. Rudolf and Adolf stood frozen at the window, eyes fixed on the chaos unfolding beyond the glass. Raindrops pelted the ground, splattering against the pavement like shattered dreams. It felt as if the universe was trying to drown out their newfound hope with relentless force. "What kind of problem?" Rudolf's voice cut through the tempest. He turned to face Mr. Kiefer, who stood behind them, face drawn tight with concern. "There are reports of a flood watch in the area," Mr. Kiefer said, clenching his hands into fists. "If those waters rise, we'll have serious damage, especially here." Rudolf swallowed hard, images of inked designs and handcrafted samples swirling in his mind. "But we just started to believe we could fix things. We finally found a direction. Belief is valuable, but we need to act." Adolf broke in, turning toward the table littered with their sketches. "We can work against the clock, keep moving forward despite the storm. We can't let fear ruin this for us." The rain hammered against the roof, almost drowning out their hearts' rapid beats. With every moment, the urgency tightened around them like a vice, and doubt began to creep back in. Rudolf could feel his pulse thumping in his throat. What if this is a sign? Maybe we're not supposed to go down this path. Adolf stepped forward, determination flashing in his eyes. "We can't afford to think that way. Remember when we were kids? Every time we faced something big, we tackled it together. You need to trust that same bond." The memories surged forth like the rising tide. The brothers had shared so much a childhood filled with joyous bliss, heated squabbles, and the kind of laughter that made everything else fade away. They climbed trees, dreamt of endless horizons, and overcome every obstacle that life had thrown at them. "All right," Rudolf said, his voice steadier. "What do we do? Let us secure the workshop first. We gather everything that can be damaged. Bring it to higher ground," Adolf instructed, darting toward the door. They rushed to grab sketches, files, and prototypes, their earlier enthusiasm igniting like a sizzling flame once again. Each piece they moved symbolized their dreams, a tangible sign of the commitment they had made to each other and their long-lost vision. In the thick of frantic movement, their hands brushed against one another, a reminder that they weren't just brothers in blood but in spirit, united in their deep-rooted desire to reclaim their legacy. The storm outside mirrored the brewing emotional hurricane inside Rudolf's heart. Just when they thought they had everything secure, a loud crash echoed through the workshop. The brothers halted, a wave of dread washing over them. They exchanged frantic glances, both knowing that the moment they had feared might have arrived. "Rudolf!" Adolf shouted, panic laced with urgency. "We need to check what happened." Heart pounding, Rudolf nodded, and they rushed to the source of the noise. As they turned the corner, the sight before them sent a jolt of shock through his system. A large statue that had been a part of their childhood memories had toppled over, debris scattered like broken pieces of their past. "We can't let this break us," Rudolf said, resolve hardening within him. "We'll rebuild, just like we did before." Outside, the sky continued to rage, but amidst the turbulence, a sense of purpose settled over them. The storm wouldn't dictate their future. They would reclaim it. But as they collected themselves to lift the remnants of their shattered dreams, a thought nagged at Rudolf: could they truly navigate the storms ahead? Or was this only the beginning of a tide that could drown their newfound hopes? What awaited them in the wake of this chaos? Would they emerge stronger, or would the price be too steep? The questions lingered, heavy as the air around them. Adolf took a deep breath, steeling himself. The shadows in the workshop seemed to deepen as they faced the fallen statue. Its cracked surface mirrored the fissures developing in their hopes. "Rudolf," he said, voice steady despite the whirlwind around them, "we need to focus. There's no time to waste." A moment of silence fell between them as they surveyed the destruction. Memories flooded back, weaving through the remnants like threads in a tapestry. Family gatherings, laughter echoing through the halls, the statue standing proudly in its place. It felt like a piece of their childhood had been swept away with the crashing sound that had reverberated through the room. "We'll fix it," Rudolf insisted, squaring his shoulders. "Not just the statue, but everything. We'll rebuild the workshop the way we envisioned, stronger, more vibrant." Adolf nodded, his eyes now lit with fire. "Let us work in sections. We can create a plan of attack. We'll lift what's important first, and then we can come back for the statue." They began their task, each movement deliberate, as if handling fragile dreams. They salvaged what they could, separating sketches from pieces of equipment. With every item secured, Rudolf felt a spark of hope ignite in his heart. "Do you remember when we made that first model?" Rudolf chuckled, wiping sweat from his brow. "It was a complete disaster, but we kept going. I can still hear that awful squeak as it rolled." Adolf laughed, his voice cutting through the tension. "Yeah. And we were convinced we had created the next big thing. It was ridiculous." The laughter transformed into a balm that eased their fears. It reminded them that every great idea came with its share of stumbles. Every setback was only a stepping stone toward success. Suddenly, a booming crash pierced the air, different from before. They both whirled around, hearts racing. Mr. Kiefer burst through the back door, drenched and panicked, eyes wide with urgency. "The water's rising faster than we anticipated," he shouted. Adolf's face paled. "We need to get everything we can to safety. Now, this workshop can't become another victim to the flood." Rudolf and Adolf steeled themselves, urgency pushing them into action once more. They formed a human chain, each brother handing off boxes and sketches to Mr. Kiefer, who stood ready like a lifeguard at the shore. The tension in the room grew heavier, the rain outside drumming like a heart racing against a ticking clock as they shuffled and dodged through the frantic dance of rising panic and swirling memories. A wave of despair washed over Rudolf. Heart racing, he blurted, "What if we lose all this? What if we lose everything?" Adolf dropped the box he was carrying, stepping closer. "We won't lose what matters most." He pointed to each of the sketches hanging on the walls, papers filled with their hopes, dreams, and ideas. "Those will always be with us. It's us who makes it happen, not the place itself." With newfound resolve, the brothers dove back into the chaos. Holding on to each other's encouragement, they moved fluidly through the storm of their uncertainty, building their defense against both the flood and their fears. But as they reached the final stack of sketches, the wind outside picked up ferociously, rattling the windows. A sound like an angry roar filled the air, causing their hearts to leap in unison. Did it signal their dreams were about to be swept away, or was it the promise of something more? As they prepared for one last push against the chaos, a glimmer of light flickered outside, drawing their eyes away momentarily. It felt like a sign or perhaps a new beginning. What lay behind the storm? Would they discover clarity, or would they face another level of turbulence? Every question hung heavy in the air as they braced for what was to come. Adolf glanced at Rudolf, fear mixing with determination in his chest. "Do you see that light? It's coming from the workshop entrance. It might be our way out of this." Rudolf nodded, his brow furrowed as they both noticed the shimmering glow slicing through the downpour. "Let us check it out," he replied, an urgency gripping his voice. They dashed through the remnants of their hopes and dreams, heartbeats pounding against their ribcages. Each step was marked by puddles that splashed up against their legs. The water was rising. The weight of dread clung to their shoulders, but the light beckoned them forward as they reached the entrance. They found a small pile of tools, strung out like a lifeline against the tide of chaos. The light emanated from a lantern left behind, illuminating the path ahead. It was an old lantern belonging to their father, a relic from simpler times. Its warm glow felt like a hug, reminding them of evenings spent listening to their father's stories while he fixed things around the workshop. "Remember when he taught us how to use this?" Rudolf whispered, clutching it gently. He said tools have a heart. They hold memories. Adolf smiled faintly at the thought, but the urgency pulled them back. "We can't lose this. It's a symbol. Let us keep it safe." With the lantern secured, they looked back at the chaotic scene. Just then, another crash resonated through the muddy air, louder than before. This time it was followed by the splintering sound of wood from the far corner, a reminder that the very structure of their childhood was crumbling. "Come on," Adolf urged. "We can still save the sketches." They raced back, gripping the lantern tightly. They worked in a frenzy, collecting their sketches and tools, packing them hastily into any available boxes. With each item they saved, their confidence grew, reinforcing the bond forged by their shared history. But outside, nature roared its fury. Rain pounded heavily now, the sound drowning out their voices. The winds howled like wounded animals. Rudolf found himself shouting, "There's something about facing destruction that lights a fire within us." "Exactly," Adolf responded, adrenaline surging through him. "This isn't just about saving the workshop. It's about saving our future." With the final box secured, they took a moment to breathe, letting the weight of their survival wash over them. The little light from the lantern flickered reassuringly, surrounded by the raging storm. For a moment, time stood still. "Whatever happens next," Rudolf said, his gaze fixed on Adolf's eyes, "let us promise to keep moving forward together." "Together?" Adolf echoed, the word resonating like a vow. Suddenly, the ground beneath them trembled as another wave surged, threatening to engulf everything. They looked at each other, realization dawning that the moment to act had arrived. "We have to go," Rudolf shouted. Without hesitation, they hurled open the workshop doors. The world beyond was wildly transformed, now a torrential landscape. The familiar boundaries of their neighborhood had vanished into the water, replaced by swirling currents and dark shadows. "Follow me," Adolf yelled, gripping the lantern tightly. They plunged into the downpour, steadying themselves against the wind as they fought their way through the chaotic rush of floodwater. As they pushed through the storm, each brother's heart beat not only with fear, but with the hope of what lay ahead. They didn't know where the path would take them, but they did know that somehow, they had each other. Then, a figure emerged from the corner of their eye, struggling against the tide. It was a friend, a neighbor caught in the same flood. "Adolf, Rudolf," came a voice, desperate and frantic. "I need help." With eyes wide, they knew it wasn't just their own survival at stake anymore. They had a choice to make, one that could change everything. Would they risk everything to save someone else, or could they afford to lose focus on their own struggle? Just as they hesitated, the water surged again, reminding them that time was running out. What kind of brothers would they be? The answer loomed large as they faced the next grueling choice. Adolf and Rudolf exchanged a quick glance, their eyes reflecting both fear and resolve. They knew their friend's life was hanging in the balance, weighed against the urgency of their own escape. The decision slipped into their minds like the water around them. It was impossible to ignore. "We can't just leave him," Rudolf shouted over the roaring storm, his voice strained. Adolf nodded, clenching the lantern even tighter. "We help him. Let us go." With that, the brothers dashed toward their struggling neighbor, the flickering light guiding them through the chaos. "Grab my hand," Rudolf yelled, extending his arm. Their neighbor, Ethan, was waist-deep in rushing water, his face twisted in panic. He reached out, the current pulling him back with relentless force. It was a race against time, and every second counting felt like a lifetime. "Hold on," Adolf cried, lunging forward as he felt the mud beneath him give way. He grabbed Ethan's wrist, the grip solid yet slippery. Together, with Rudolf's support, they strained against the water. Hearts racing, they pulled with everything they had. "Keep kicking. You're almost there," Rudolf urged, his muscles burning from the effort. Ethan's feet struggled against the muck, and for a moment, it looked like hope might dissolve just like the neighborhood around them. With one final heave, they managed to pull Ethan close enough for him to grasp onto the edge of the workshop, his fingers curling around a broken beam. Relief flooded his eyes as he gasped for breath, but fear was still evident. "Thank you. I thought I would drown." "We're not done yet," Adolf exclaimed, adrenaline surging as he glanced back at the rising tide. The water was relentless, and the workshop, their symbolic safe haven, was becoming less of a refuge with each pounding wave. "We need to get to higher ground." Rudolf didn't waste a second. "We can't go back the way we came. The road is gone." The hill behind the workshop, with one arm wrapped around Ethan, they fought their way back, taking the lantern with them as their guiding light. The structure groaned as water continued to lap at its sides, shadows dancing like ghosts through the chaos. The journey to the hill felt eternal. Each step was a struggle against the current, and the fear of being overwhelmed loomed larger than the rising water itself. But with every breath they took, the camaraderie reignited their strength. "Stay close," Rudolf shouted, determination blazing in his chest. The brothers exchanged anxious glances, and they could almost hear their father's voice echoing the importance of family, of sticking together no matter the storm. Just as they reached the moment of triumph, the base of the hill approached out of the murky depths disaster struck. The ground beneath them shifted, and with a sickening lurch, they realized the water was eroding the earth away. "Run!" Adolf barked, pushing Ethan ahead of them as the hill threatened to collapse. They scrambled up, hands clawing at the dirt, hearts racing, and fear merging with purpose. Each brother propelled the other forward, both knowing that the stakes were life itself. Ethan gasped as he teetered near the edge. "I can't hold on," he cried out, panic creeping into his voice. "Just a little further," Rudolf shouted, urging both Ethan and Adolf to give it their all one last time. They grasped tightly onto the roots and foliage, their hearts thundering as the water chased them relentlessly from behind. And in the throes of their struggle, something shifted within Adolf, an unexpected, burning determination ignited. "We cannot let go. Not today," he yelled, his voice rising above the storm through sheer will. They reached the crest of the hill, collapsing into a sodden heap, gasping for air. They had made it, and the thought hung heavy in the air, merging with silence, as the world below continued to rage. But as they looked back at the workshop, now distant in the chaos, a question stirred in their hearts. Was this victory truly the end, or merely the beginning of something more daunting? A flicker of the lantern illuminated the faces of the brothers. They could see the uncertainty in each other's eyes. What would come next, now that they had chosen not just to survive but to save? The storm raged on, but within its fury, a new path awaited them, one that would demand more than they ever imagined. The wind howled around them, a fierce reminder of the storm still raging below. However, atop the hill, a new kind of stillness settled in. Breathless, the three men stared across their drenched landscape, the workshop quickly being swallowed by the rising chaos. "How did we make it?" Ethan murmured, still in shock as he wiped water from his face. The flickering lantern cast a warm glow, illuminating a mixture of exhaustion and relief etched across the brothers' faces. We fought," Rudolf replied, eyeing their surroundings. The trees swayed violently in the wind, but the hill stood resolute, as if protecting them from the worst of the storm. "We stayed together, didn't we?" "Yeah, together," Adolf echoed, his own heart still racing. He turned toward Ethan, sensing the unshakable bond forming in that moment. "You held on." Ethan's gaze fell to the workshop, the memories flooding back. "I thought I was done for. I thought," his voice broke, the weight of it all crashing down. "I was so afraid." Fear is natural, Rudolf said quietly, a flicker of pain crossing his expression. But we can't let it drown us. We move forward, right? Ethan nodded, taking a deep breath. He needed that anchor, that belief. But what now? We're safe, kind of. But where do we go from here? The brothers exchanged another determined glance. Even amid the uncertainty, a steadfast spark ignited in Adolf's chest. We need to make sure everyone else is safe too. There are still people who may need help. Rudolf looked down the hill, feeling the intensity of the situation. The water is rising. Those who couldn't escape may still be in danger. Adolf stepped forward instinctively. Then we can't stay here. We need to find a way down to check on the others. He could feel the adrenaline still coursing through him, even now that the immediate threat had passed. Hold on, Ethan said, his voice sharpening with newfound resolve. I know the back roads. I can guide us through the homes, at least to the neighborhood where my parents live. Rudolf nodded, steeling himself. Okay, but we stick together. No one gets left behind again. As they began their descent, each step was careful. The earth beneath them unstable from the pounding waves. The faint light from the lantern illuminated their path, sketching shadows that danced nervously as they moved. The journey back felt almost surreal, each step echoing the intensity of what they had just survived. As they navigated familiar streets turned foreign in the storm's grip, the houses loomed like ghosts. Often, they paused, listening intently for cries for help, any sign that others were still stranded. What if we find someone and we can't get them out in time? Ethan's voice trembled slightly, vulnerability showing through his brave facade. Adolf stopped to face him, his heart swelling with empathy. Then we'll do our best, he said firmly. Just like we did for you. Rudolf's hand rested on Ethan's shoulder. You weren't just rescued, Ethan. You helped us too. We all have strength together. The warmth of his words wrapped around them, but only for a moment as they continued their trek. Shadows loomed closer, echoing the uncertainty that lingered in their hearts. With every step, the reality settled deeper. The storm was leaving destruction in its wake, and the question grew louder in their minds. What awaited them when they reached the neighborhood? Would they find their friends and family safe, or would they be confronted with a different kind of fear? As they approached the first house, a flicker of movement caught their attention, something unmistakable against the backdrop of the raging storm. A shadow stepped into the light, just beyond reach, and the brothers froze. Is that? Rudolf whispered, peering ahead, eyes narrowing as the shapes shifted. A voice called through the chaos. A pinprick of hope within the storm's roar. Help! Somebody please! And in that moment, they realized the storm was far from over. It had only just begun to unveil its true danger. Adolf, Rudolf, and Ethan exchanged quick, determined glances as the cry for help echoed through the chaos. Their hearts raced, fueled by a blend of fear and fierce responsibility. This is it, Rudolf exclaimed, the adrenaline pumping through him. They took off toward the sound, pushing through the rising waters, each step deliberate. Their bond as brothers and newfound allies guiding their every move as they neared the source of the voice. A figure stood half submerged in the flood, hands outstretched, desperation written all over their face. It was Sophie, their childhood friend. Help me, she shrieked, terror in her wide eyes, without thought. Adolf plunged into the murky water beside Sophie, arms reaching out. Hold on, I'm coming, he shouted, fear tangled with courage. He grasped her arm tightly, while Rudolf joined in, working together to pull her free from the waterous grip. The storm raged on, but in that moment, the connection they forged shined brighter than the swirling chaos. Sophie gasped as they pulled her onto solid ground, relief flooding her features as she looked into their eyes. I thought I wouldn't make it. Thank you. The reality of the moment crashed upon them, reminding each brother of their mission. We need to check if anyone else is around, Rudolf said, urgency tightening his voice. The brotherly vow to protect one another expanded to include their community, a calming force pushing back against the storm's fury. They moved quickly, combing through each house, some of which were eerily silent, and others echoed with frantic voices seeking help. The bond they formed brought strength not only for themselves but for the people around them. With each cry they answered, they felt the weight of their purpose, restoring hope amid despair. They soon gathered a small group of survivors, and with improvised resources and makeshift rafts, they moved on, seeking higher ground. Laughter mingled with tears as people clung to one another, sharing stories that reminded them of their community spirit. Even in dire circumstances, they found a glimmer of light that as the storm began to calm. The rescued stood atop the hill, watching the water slowly recede. The sky lightened, and the sun fought through the clouds, casting a golden glow that painted hope all around them. The brothers felt the heavy weight of everything that had transpired, and yet, in that moment, joy flooded through their hearts. Each person gathered represented not just survival but resilience and an unbroken bond. Ethan turned to the brothers, his gratitude shining through. "I wouldn't have survived without you. This wasn't just a rescue, it was our community coming together." His words resonated deeply, igniting a flicker of inspiration in Rudolf. Adolf nodded, stepping forward to address the group. "We've fought through the worst of this storm, and it has shown us what matters. It's not just about safety, it's about family. We need to rebuild not just structures, but our very community. Together we can rise from this," Rudolf added, his voice strong. "Our dreams, our history, they're tied within us and within each other." The survivors rallied around them, nodding, their spirits igniting with renewed hope. With unity and shared purpose, they began to discuss their plans for rebuilding. Ideas flowed like the dawn breaking, painting a brighter future ahead. As the brothers walked away from the group, their hearts lightened. They couldn't ignore how much they transformed through this shared experience. They looked at each other, memories of rivalry slipping through the cracks where love had seeped through. "That was so much more than we imagined," Rudolf said, his voice colored with emotion. "We found each other through the chaos." "We really did," Adolf replied, squeezing his brother's shoulder. "We need to keep this momentum going." In that moment, they recognized how this storm had stripped them of their past grievances and fortified their bond. The shadows of competition faded like the storm clouds as they turned back to their community. Ready to face the challenges ahead, the future now gleamed with possibility. The laughter, the connection, the spark of shared dreams all acted like a beacon to guide them forward. From that day on, not only were they brothers in blood but brothers in purpose and spirit. The tides may have tested them, but it was the warmth of rekindled dreams and brotherly love that would guide them in the days to come. This was not just their transformation. It was a rebirth for their entire community, and they were ready to embrace it all together. Now, dear friends, as we close this chapter, let us honor resilience, unity, and the power of family. You need to subscribe now to witness more inspiring journeys. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait not even one more second to share. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and ensure we keep bringing you more stories like this. Comment below your thoughts on this powerful ending, and share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to experience this transformation. Your support means the world to us.